You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do? Doctor, will it be okay? You got the kind of stuff that makes my day. Doctor on the air, you got me rattled. Doctor on the air, yeah, life's a battle. Doctor on the air.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. 1-877-DOC-DAHLIA, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So tragedy struck this weekend in New York near the Statue of Liberty when a boat capsized. And it's just horrifying to hear what happened. Sarah Reyes, who I believe is one of the survivors, told the New York Post that she was among 14 people on board the vessel where family and friends gathered to celebrate her mom's birthday. The group had chartered a boat, a 2019 21-foot white Yamaha AR-210 from Zeus Luxury Rentals. This is being reported by Daily Mail. It was her mom, Paula Rivera's surprise party. She was turning 41 years old. They boarded the boat. The witness described it as kind of a yacht. At around 7 p.m., they passed by the Statue of Liberty. They were headed back to shore, and then tragedy struck at about 10:30 p.m. According to the witness, water got into the boat. The boat went up, and then went down, and in seconds, it flipped over. All of the passengers were then left stuck underneath the vessel. Crews rescued them and pulled them from the water. And she said, "We were just trying to get out." Then, when everyone finally got out, everyone was screaming. Sadly, Sarah Sanchez, 27-year-old, and her 5-month-old daughter, Antonella Garcia, were airlifted to NYU Langone Hospital in Brooklyn. They were in critical condition, but sadly, both were pronounced dead. A lot of questions as to what happened. Many others were transported also to a local hospital with minor injuries. Sanchez and her daughter were survived by their husband and father, Andres. Andres was also on board. He survived, as well as the couple's other son. Here he is losing a wife and a daughter over, and it was supposed to be a birthday party for someone's mother, and sadly, it ended in tragedy. So, of course, there's a lot of questions, and people are asking why, how did this happen? One report said that the boat should have never carried that many people. And that would be my first thought. And then that the boat was, quote, dangerously overcrowded. It was a 21-foot yacht that usually carries no more than 10 people. And I believe that there were 14 people and I believe the captain. According to the New York Post, they say that everyone went into the drink. The mom and baby, boat captain, 6 women ranging in age from 20 to 45, and 5 men aged 28 to 58. All of the passengers except for one was from Queens. The other one was from the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And so obviously everybody's in shock. The vessel typically carries about 10 people. It should not have been carrying more than 5 people, they said, given the location where the fatal incident occurred. So recreational boating is something that is, we see a lot of it. I've chartered boats, rented boats. We were just in Alaska. You could do an expensive charter where somebody runs the charter, or you could rent your own boat if you know how to boat, you know how to motorboat, and you know how to sail. And so, my family and I are very, very comfortable with boats, but there's a humbleness that you have to have when you're, going into the ocean. And I think something like this shows that there was a lot of unpreparedness. Maybe people were drinking. And according to one source, they said the recreational boating in New York Harbor is the Wild West. There's uncharted debris, riprap, bridge abutments, anchor chains, commercial shipping channels, marine plane traffic. And here you are by such an iconic a tourist attraction, the Statue of Liberty, which, by the way, is it's if you've never been, it's beautiful. Go to Battery Island and watch it, or take a charter where you could go on. I was fortunate enough in the 90s to be able to visit the Statue of Liberty, where they let you go all the way up into the statue and as far up into the crown. Things are different. They've, cornered things off, and it's, you still get to go into the Statue of Liberty, but you don't have the access like you once did. But, a nighttime cruise around the Statue of Liberty is exquisite. I just don't know why this happened. So the boat's operator, Manuel Hernandez, 46 years old, has been now hit with 13 charges of reckless endangerment. There might be further charges because now there's 2 deaths, the mother and the 5-month-old. They said a similar tragedy struck in the Big Apple 4 years earlier. If you remember, in July of 2022, an overloaded boat packed with revelers capsized near Pier 86 in Manhattan, leaving a 7-year-old boy and a 50-year-old woman dead. They got trapped underneath. These boats capsize. And I, at nighttime, there's been weather. How do you prevent this? I've worked with a lot of people that do charters and do these excursions. They're not necessarily going to undersell what they're pitching to you. They're not going to say, oh yeah, it could be dangerous, or they're going to say, oh, of course it's safe. It's a good boat, just inspected. We have your life preservers. We have everything in check. We've done this a million times. It's good. And these trips do usually go unhitched. But when you see something like this, you're like, what a waste. And was somebody on drugs? Was somebody drunk? What did something happen to the boat? Did it hit something? Did it, these are, I love the water, and I love that people want to venture out and enjoy things that, might not necessarily be on our solid sidewalk or solid asphalt. And I get that, and seeing the Statue of Liberty, to celebrate a birthday by the Statue of Liberty, I'm all for. But we really need to do our due diligence. I think we're putting just too much stock into thinking somebody else is doing their job. And the one thing I've learned time and time again is you got to do your own job. You got to do your own inspection. If you don't trust, just don't go there. Prayers and blessings to the family. I hope they get through this tragedy. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
And we're back in the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I'm trying to keep up on all sports, and I've watched some WNBA games, and these women are good. It's good basketball. They just don't get the ratings. They don't get the money like the NBA does, and NFL and NHL. And so what they lack, shall we say, in terms of the spotlight and the media spotlight like these other teams, professional teams do, they're really starting to make up with drama. And it's a shame because the WNBA, these players, they just want to play good basketball. But things have taken a real interesting turn lately. So I don't know if you guys have watched this, but ex-NBA star Enes Kanter-Freedom, as well as Royce White, has, in light of all the controversy now over transgender biological males and female sports, have thrown their names into the ring to be WNBA players, saying that they want to exercise their right for inclusivity. They're not currently with an NBA team. So if WNBA is that inclusive, let them draft. And it's actually fascinating. And I wonder, I don't know if it's going to be putting an end to the subject, but I think one thing we do in America, and currently now, especially in the light of social media, is we'll say things that sound good, say things that sound like we are for the betterment of people. But when somebody raises their hand and goes, "Excuse me, how does that work? How does that actually work?" Then all argue, everything falls apart. Just like what we're seeing with the DSA and the socialism. Oh, yeah, free childcare, free Medicare for all, free this, free this, free. And you're like, wait a second, how does that actually work? Electric vehicles for all. We're going to mandate electric vehicles. Everybody has to have an electric vehicle. If you live in an apartment and you don't have access to an outside plug, how's that going to work? So it always takes somebody to kind of just go, okay, guys, and I see you have good intentions, but can we please look at the practicality of it? So the WNBA, whether they are loving all this attention because they're getting attention and people are watching more games, or if they are not too happy about the latest developments, we're being told that there is going to be a coming together of the minds as it pertains to what the NBA is going to do over transgender athletes. Much of this started way before Sophie Cunningham, but Sophie Cunningham, Indiana Fever star, says she wants to protect young girls from biological men. A very, very popular attitude, and especially among women that fought hard to be able to, get where they are in sports and, locker room and safe spaces, etc. But the WNBA is catching themselves between a woke and a hard place, and they're trying to figure out how to, appease all sides. And so, seeing now two ex-NBA players, men, Kanter-Freedom and Royce White, declare themselves eligible for the WNBA draft, saying they identify as women. It's going to be interesting to see. And they said they're not doing this as a joke. They're not doing this as a slight or out of disrespect. If they're not playing for the NBA, why not tap in on their feminine side and play for the WNBA? When Royce White started to get trolled by his critics, he actually put on a wig and he said he's celebrating his feminine era. So the WNBA has not made any public comments on this issue. There has been a lot of pressure on the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, And the players, Caitlin Clark was getting grilled about this. Let the players just play, okay? Let them, just let them do what they're paid to do. It's hard enough to be an athlete. It's hard enough to be avoiding the injuries and the scrutiny and the security, and then to add on top of this, well, we need you to weigh in, from a political standpoint. It's ridiculous. DeJounte Carrington got ejected when during one of the plays with Sophie Cunningham. It looks like she went after her neck or head in a leap. Whether it was intentional or not, I'm not here to debate. But we're having these discussions about biological men in sports when Sophie Cunningham could have, inadvertently, accidentally, gotten major cervical spine and head injury from another woman. The reason why we separate girls and men in sports is because of safety. It's not because we want to take a 5-year-old trans child and discriminate against them. It's because you have biological differences between men and females, and it is the league's duty to ensure that they are not going to have somebody who is a foot taller, 50 pounds, heavier, threatening inadvertently, just physically, your female players. It just, to me, makes sense. This has nothing to do with being left, right. A child who feels they are trans can play any sport they want to play within their biological realm. That's the way it's always been. And it's not because of people wanting to be mean or rude. It's because there has to be some common sense and there has to be some safety. And we are seeing Caitlin Clark get punched in the neck, and people, even Sophie Cunningham, I think, was ejected for a move that was a flagrant foul, and technical, and I think there's a few things going on right now. One is people want to elevate the WNBA and put the WNBA in this spotlight that allows them to get more of the ratings, more of the attention, more of the sponsors. So I think there are people behind this that are just loving the controversy and wanting to feed into it and make this bigger than it needs to be. You also have people on the political sides going, yeah, why not turn WNBA into a blood sport where we have people fighting, and it's not just about the Minnesota Lynx and Indiana and Chicago Sky. This is about something bigger, that these women are fighting for human rights and fighting for, but you forget that these women are also, they benefited from being in leagues where it was just women against women and not men against women. I don't know where this is going to go. Are male players going to be eligible for the female draft? And if the WNBA doesn't, come up with some common sense procedures and protocols with this, then men will have a right. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to the team. And then eventually all the men are going to get drafted because, of course, they're going to be able to have much more physical acumen and power on the courts. Teams are going to want to draft men, and then we're just going to see women become cheerleaders or be sitting there on the sideline. So I think we should get our acts together. Don't fall into this. Look, the WNBA wants to not be on the wrong side of woke. They want to ensure that they are being, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. Okay, you could be very pro the LGBTQAI plus community without violating the sanctity of female sports and what it took for females to be able to get to the point safely and on their own volition. The women have made such progress. And you're reversing it by, Let the biological men play. Women finally get their own space. Women finally get their own platform. And now they got to share it with a man. Come on. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We got a lot to talk about today. Don't go away. Really quickly here, there might be some breaking news. As we're getting some more breaking news in this, we're going to definitely get to that. I know there's a lot of your questions and calls, so we're going to get to that as well. Don't go away, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right, welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. So people keep asking, are we done with daylight savings time? If years ago the Senate passed it unanimously, and then the House stalled, and now we have the House passing it, but the Senate hasn't taken it up, where are we with this? I mean, well, the good news is we're probably closer than we ever have to stopping the archaic biannual daylight saving time changes. We're closer than we've ever been, especially since we know the Senate has had a history of unanimously passing this. It's just they haven't gotten to it yet. When they did pass the Sunshine Protection Act under Senator Marco Rubio at the time, who each session would submit it and it would pass, the House would sit on it. Nancy Pelosi just, I guess, didn't want to move on it. This time we have the House that has done their part. And we have a president who wants to stop the daylight time changes. Of course he does. It's stupid. It doesn't make any more sense. There's health risks with the spring forward. The fall back, is nice getting that extra hour. But for those of us who work in the middle of the night or have dogs and cats that don't care, the benefit is negligible. We need to stop doing practices that were World War I era, because that's when we did wartime. Actually, the Germans started it first before Woodrow Wilson took it on to save power and coal and help shift with the diurnal, to work with the daylight, and it then I guess was revisited during World War II, also wartime, and then as the states decided, well, we want to keep it, we don't, it became a mess. Lyndon B. Johnson had to do the Uniform Time Act, and all states, with the exception of Hawaii and Arizona, change their clocks now twice a year. Stupid, and it's 2026. So people are asking, well, where are we with this? Well, the Senate is now on recess. Not having passed the SAVE Act, not having done a lot of the things that I believe Americans were kind of hoping they would get done. Considering clocks turn back, I believe November 1st, I don't know if they're going to do it in time. What the law would basically state is we just stay on daylight saving time, which we are now. I prefer standard, to be honest. I love the way I feel during standard time. I sleep better. I always have preferred standard. Most medical professional groups agree with me. The standard is better. However, I don't care. I'm not going to mess anything up. If we have the potential to finally stop the time changes, I don't care whether it's standard. I don't care whether it's saving. Pick one, choose it. I'm for that. In fact, we have a petition that has garnered a few 100,000 people that are just on that thinking, look, let's just pick one and go with it. So how would that work? Well, rather than us changing the clocks and making a mess of things again in the fall, we would just keep things the way they are. And so if we're in daylight saving time, it would just be daylight saving time. Now, technically, though, it wouldn't be that simple. Right now, if the Senate does pass on the Sunshine Protection Act, that would mean that states don't necessarily have to follow the federal, shall we say, Uniform Time Act. States, however, may choose, well, I want to do standard. I want to do saving. And so one thing that has held this up in Congress is our legislators fear that you will have Indiana on one time, Illinois on another time, Arizona on another time, California another time. I mean, I can't tell you how much of a pain in the butt it is where I never know the time it is in Arizona, or Hawaii, because it changes every 6 months. And I never know whether they're on standard or saving. It's just too hard for me to remember. But here's the thing. These states aren't stupid. Nevada will parallel California. If California wants daylight saving, Nevada's going to keep daylight saving. Every time Nevada, by the way, each state has put in their own, shall we say, legislation. And each state has year after year passed, or per the legislative sessions, passed for stopping the time clock, the biannual time changes. So this has been something that is popular among states. However, if a state works very closely, if North Dakota works very closely with South Dakota and Minnesota, I mean, they're not going to mess around. Right? Nevada's not going to want to be on a different time zone than California. If they work well in the Pacific time zone, they're going to probably keep it. So I don't think it's going to be that much of chaos as everybody is suggesting it would be. But, one thing about Trump is he is really about making changes that stick. When you watch all these history shows on FDR and Roosevelt, and I'm now watching the Ulysses S. Grant, you want to know that what you're doing means something. Even Abraham Lincoln struggled, in his youth with his depression and with his anxiety, and he even contemplated suicide. And he was concerned, and he told his best friend, Joshua Speed, that, he wants to accomplish something. He wants to be known for something. And so one thing about Trump, with these Trump accounts, with the Abraham Accords, with the, bringing the hostages home from Hamas, trying to put a stop to the Russia-Ukraine war and Iran's ability to have nuclear weapons. He wants something that's going to last and going to go to perpetuity, because he saw what happened after his first term, how all of a sudden the history, everything got changed. Lightning speed online, reinterpreting what his presidency was. And yes, he's going to have his own presidential library, etc. But we see how history has changed. We see how history is reworded. And so he wants to make sure that there are some things that you really can't reword. Now, the Trump accounts, establishing those, no tax on tips. Those are things, they're, catchy terms, lowering the drug prices. The drug prices is a perfect example. Trump, during his first presidency, during his first term, got insulin down to $35. Then we didn't hear about any of that during the Biden years until a couple years into Biden's presidency. He said, I'm bringing down insulin price to $35. And I said, but didn't Trump do that? And I credit both presidents for trying to bring down drug prices, but what sticks? And so you're going to see in the next, few years with Trump, him making moves that are going to have a level of permanence and a level of infamy and notoriety and fame that is going to be really, really hard to reword, which means if Wikipedia or if an online, media outlet wants to be anti-Trump, and they have to mention, well, the Trump accounts were established or the Abraham Accords or drug prices got dropped, by half, because of his new executive order to pharmaceutical companies to not charge us more than other developed countries. They're going to have a hard time. They're going to have a hard time rewording it, remixing it, and twisting it to something that's anti or bad. So personally, I think Trump's going to want to get this done. He's going to want to get that SAVE Act done. I mean, ensuring that elections are ethical, that there's voter ID, that's huge. Not sure what's happening with that. Senate says they promise they'll get back on that when they come back from recess. But if they come back in September, we're only weeks away from the election. So we'll see what happens. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
So not to age myself, I like eating dinner early. And it's not to get the blue light specials and to save money. I've never felt well eating late at night. Maybe it's because when I would be overnight, doing my overnight shifts, maybe it's because I knew my bowels just didn't really like, it just wanted, I guess, some normalcy in breakfast, lunch, dinner. So for me, I like eating early. early breakfast. I like eating something around lunchtime. If I could split it up between 10 and 2, it's even better. And then I like eating dinner before 5, 6 o'clock. That's just me. And yes, I am getting older. But I always thought that the later you eat, the worse it was. And so now we have a study looking at meal timings. And the colleagues from the University of Murcia looked at 420 adults in Spain who took part in the same weight loss program over 20 weeks. And they found that those who ate an earlier lunch lost more weight and lost it quickly compared to those who chose to eat lunch later in the day. Now, Marta Garole is from the University of Murcia in Spain. She became interested in the impact of meal timings after making observations in her weight loss clinic. Over a decade ago, she observed 2 patients who experienced different weight loss results despite living together and following the exact same diet. One had lunch around 1 p.m., while the other could only eat later because of her class schedule. That was the only difference. The student eating an earlier lunch had lost much more weight after 6 weeks. So it led her to investigate the intriguing possibility that meal timing itself could have a huge influence on weight loss. That's not earth-shattering. I mean, we've all known that certain times and when to eat is pretty important. But there was a small randomized controlled trial of 32 women who ate the same meals for 2 weeks. Those who ate a later lunch showed poorer blood sugar control and burned fewer calories. Numerous studies have found that our circadian rhythms influences our hunger, digestion, and metabolism. And so why would eating the exact same food at a different time of day have such a powerful effect? Well, again, it is, I think, very, very related to how our body regulates sugar and our circadian rhythm. There was a 2022 study, according to BBC News, of more than 800 adults. Researchers gave each one a glucose drink or a sugary drink designed to mimic the carbohydrate content of a typical evening meal. They found that participants processed it less efficiently when they consumed it 1 hour before bedtime rather than 4 hours earlier. Those who drank it closer to bedtime had higher blood sugar levels and produced less insulin. And insulin is the hormone that helps regulate sugar, get sugar from our bloodstream to our cells. Researchers believe maybe it was melatonin that played a key role in the process. They said if you eat when melatonin is elevated in the evening, your glucose control is going to be impaired. They say the effect was even greater in people carrying a common variant of the MTNRIB1B gene. That's been associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Over time, later eating could therefore increase the risk of developing the condition, which has steadily been increasing worldwide. Now the reason why, again, I'm not, thinking this is earth-shattering brand new news is I remember in the 80s, my father was talking about don't eat late. If you eat late, you could get diabetes. I mean, already, we might now have things down to the gene, but I remember, hearing my parents and grandparents talk about what to do for health, and some of these things still hold true. And one thing that I've also noticed is, and one thing I noticed in my practice is people who skipped breakfast were more prone to getting diabetes, whereas people who would eat a healthy breakfast and would, start off their insulin sensitivity and their sugar management early on, I think staved off having diabetes. Now, is it because somebody who skipped breakfast would eat one huge big lunch? Is it because of the timing? And so I really do believe that cyclical metabolism and our gut microbiome and the way we regulate things and the way our liver works and our kidney works is extremely useful in terms of when to eat. And so, do we have eat lunch, no later than noon and dinner no later than 5:30? Do we have that? No, we don't, because everybody's different. And depending on where you live, your daylight saving time, when your sunset comes. I mean, I was just in Alaska. Sunset didn't happen till like 11:30 at night. I mean, it's going to be different no matter what. But if you do notice that you're just not making headway as it pertains to your weight loss goals, and you feel like your GLP-1 shot is, starting to burn out and not have any more oomph. Relook at when you eat. For me, I noticed what worked better wasn't the 1 or 2 big meals. I would gain weight with that. But if I ate smaller meals throughout the day, 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m. Now, some of you love intermittent fasting, where they say, look, I'm just going to eat between 12 and 5, and then I'm just going to starve the rest of the day. Some people lose a lot of weight that way. I've had family members that go, the intermittent fasting is the only thing that works. I worry they could still get diabetes. I just feel like, when you're only eating a few hours a day, what is that pancreas going to, how is the pancreas going to deal with the sugar overload? But eating right before you go to bed, I just don't, I've just never found that healthy. Now, on the other end, a lot of times after lunch, we get tired. The lunch nap. Very common. For centuries, people would take a nap after lunch. And the body might, with lunchtime, want you to rest, want to digest the food so that maybe you're not super hungry at nighttime and eating a big meal. Maybe that's a way to help conserve calories. But I do notice that might be a little bit of a caveat where your mid-afternoon nap after eating, of course, don't eat crap and sugary food. That's going to make you more sleepy. And I'm not saying to nap after you eat, but that's been something that our bodies have naturally chosen to do. Unlike this whole breakfast, lunch, and dinner sort of thing, where we get a little tired after we eat. And sometimes I feel like there might be an evolutionary advantage to that. But to eat dinner late and then have it sit there and then I've always recommended walk after you eat. You don't have to swim. You don't have to do a heavy workout. But after you eat, walk, get the metabolism going a little bit. Make sure you eat slow. Make sure you chew your food. Don't be swallowing chunks whole. Make sure you digest your food well, and then go for a nice walk at night. Get that melatonin started. You're away from all the LED lights, and hopefully outside you get to see some starlight and you get to hear the grasshoppers. And I think that's sort of a regimen really is more advantageous to your health and to your metabolism. And then, of course, what really messes up your metabolism is all the fake food. All these ingredients that your body doesn't know what to do with. So single ingredient healthy food, avoid alcohol. I don't think alcohol helps with your sleep or your metabolism. But yeah, looking at when you eat, I think is important. Now, there is also an argument too about making sure that you have a regular cycle of things. These centenarians all attribute their longevity to doing the exact same things, eating, sleeping, pooping the same time each day. There was a study looking at 100,000 people in France who ate breakfast later and how they had a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Researchers also found that a longer overnight fast achieved by eating earlier in the evening rather than delaying breakfast was associated with better heart health. So there's a lot of studies. I know it seems like a lot of, confusion, but just the take home is don't eat late, don't eat big meals, spread it out and eat healthy. 1-877-DOCTOR.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.